And good day, good night, and welcome to World Cup Today. It's day 2. First full day of games, and we already have one wrapped up for today. Egypt and Uruguay finished 1-0 for Uruguay. A late goal by Jimenez, who decided to take that free kick in the box, jumped over about 20 defenders. Okay, 2 defenders and a teammate. Got the ball in the net, and 1-0 Uruguay. But good morning, Duane.
Good morning. And it was nice of FIFA to arrange a testimonial for Russia yesterday, but it's really nice to have a real game to watch this morning.
Well, yeah, 5-0.
With all due respect to any Saudi Arabian listeners out there.
Of course. But there's still 2 games left today, Morocco and Iran at 11 a.m. Eastern. If you're listening to this on the podcast version, you already know the result, and apologies for not knowing the results with you. And we do have as well Portugal-Spain at 2 p.m. Eastern this afternoon. If you're watching the video feed, you know where my allegiance stands for this afternoon. I'm going with Ronaldo. I'm going with Portugal. We'll see what happens. Spain is in shambles. Spain. Florentino Perez, president of Real Madrid, added some more fuel to the fire yesterday with the press conference of Lopetegui. Lopetegui mentioning, the day before, which was 2 days ago, when he got fired by Spain, saying, look, this is the worst day outside of my mom dying. This is the worst day of my life. But now it's the best day of my life. I'm signed with Real Madrid. Man, Spain is in shambles, and they're facing their biggest test this afternoon.
Well, Spain's in shambles. That's Spain. The history of the Spanish national team could be called Spain is in shambles. So that's fine. Lots of fun stuff. If you're new to us and haven't heard what our schedule is, this is exactly what it will be. We will be approximately 10 minutes after the end of the first game of the day. Throughout this World Cup, barring any strange sort of scheduling issue we're not anticipating right now. And then we will review.
Tomorrow's schedule's already strange. 6 a.m. game, 9 a.m. game, noon game, and a 3 p.m. game. So we'll see. Probably after the France game, we'll come and we'll see if we're doing a double duty show. We'll talk about it. But yeah, it has begun, Duane.
Exactly, yeah, and so we will be reviewing this game and going forward from there. Let's look back first. I mean, as I said, I made the joke off the top. That game yesterday was really not very competitive at all, was really not very compelling at all, but it's important because Russia put down 5. And that means that both of these teams playing today are staring at that in a goal differential situation. Russia's suddenly now in a position, despite the fact we don't fancy them that much, despite the fact we don't think much could be made from that game yesterday, they have a 5-goal advantage right now. Yeah. Can you see, like Egypt, and they play them, Russia can sit back and afford a draw, right?
If they get a draw against Egypt, it's over for the Pharaohs. That's what I think, right? Because that's it. That's wrapped up. They already missed their chance. This was their best chance. Mo Salah might not be ready. It's not true what the manager of Egypt said yesterday. Oh, he's ready. He might start. No, he's not. He's on the bench. Not even close. He didn't even warm up. Not even close to coming into this game. That tells you all you need to know. Don't listen to people that have an agenda like the manager. Just a threat of Mo Salah on the bench for Egypt is enough to maybe have the team sit back more or not attack you. And that threat is going to be needed throughout the group stage because he might not even play. He might be worse off than we believe, and that's what we're led to believe. He's ready. And Duane, you have been skeptical about this, and I was still iffy. I'm naive. I'm younger. I'm like, maybe. They're telling us he's okay, so maybe he is okay. But he's not. He's not going to play maybe even the next game. So, no Mo. You got some problems here.
Yeah, you know that when you're walking around downtown, you'll see a storefront and they have one of those cheesy looking plastic owls that they're sitting on top of their awning so that the pigeons get confused and don't go there. Mo Salah is a cheesy looking plastic owl right now. He's a decoy.
So
he's
Mo
there
Salah is
so
a
that
scarecrow.
Teams have to.
So basically, Mo is a scarecrow.
Yeah, exactly. He's there to frighten away the other teams so that they have to prepare for that. He actually he did get up to run in the first half, and the crowd lost its mind. And I think that's probably by design. It's Mo, do you think you're okay to run up and down a couple of times just so they think you're warming up? And yeah, he's going to be used that way. I mean, I joked. I wasn't really joking. I analyzed on Twitter after the game that maybe the biggest loser today is Liverpool because now Egypt's going to feel the pressure to force him back. And if his shoulder's not ready and he falls on it the wrong way, he could be out for 3-4 months. And, if you're Liverpool, if you're Jurgen Klopp, you're not really happy with that.
No, that's a very fair point. But Uruguay known slow starters in the World Cup, and for 70 minutes it felt like Egypt could run away with a draw. And even at that point, like at the 65th, 70th minute, I'm thinking, well, if Mo's okay, put him in now, maybe get a lucky goal, and you got yourself a lucky 3-point, a steal versus what is supposed to be the best team in the group. But that did not happen, and one of these strong suit for Uruguay is on set pieces, and we figured with Egypt's a team that is not necessarily playing a lot together will always have a bit of susceptibility in the set pieces area, and we have seen this, and we were expecting this, and it turned out to be the difference maker late in the game. Okay, sure, you had a lot of push, but you were saying Suarez did not have the same bite as usually. Yeah. But I would say they're not dialed in, right? Just a far wide. You had that great free kick of Cavani hitting the bar, which tells you that they're not too far away from having shots on target. But it took a set piece, it took a header on a free kick to open the score for Uruguay.
Yeah, I watched the BBC version of this game. I'm sort of switching around Fox yesterday. I watched BBC today. I'll probably watch TSN later this afternoon. But they were saying throughout this, they were talking about how dreadful Uruguay was playing. And I was feeling throughout this that, yeah, they weren't clicking. You're right. Like, I mean, they didn't have the bite. They didn't have the hunger, whatever pun you want to put in there. Sure. Ha, ha, ha.
I like the hunger. Never get old. The hunger is pretty good. Like, he didn't have a chip on someone else's shoulder.
Yeah, exactly. But I thought maybe that was a little unfair to Egypt. I thought Egypt was playing a very effective low block with a counter game. And had they had Salah in there, I think they had a chance to win this game because they were effectively playing that style that's favored by so many mid-level and minnow teams now in world international football. And it's a style that's an equalizer, right? If you have some athletic guys up front that can put a high press on and you can play an organized low block, then you can compete, especially if you've got a guy that can finish. But the problem is that Egypt really didn't have that guy that could finish. And when they made the sub, they took their attacker off at the end. Uruguay at that point went, okay, game on. We don't need to worry about anything anymore. Had Salah been there, like I say, they have to sit back. They can't break them down as effectively. But once that happened, you really saw the screw turn at that point, and Uruguay started to get chance after chance. We saw Cavani with that little Suarez headed the ball to him. He had that volley, that beautiful technique volley that forced the save. Then you saw and that was a great save by Alejandro as well. At that point, too, a great effort by the keeper there. That's the first time I screamed out loud in this World Cup. Then you move on to the free kick, as you say, the Cavani again. And Cavani had a great last 10 minutes. He really showed his quality at that point. Suarez, I think Suarez was good at the end, too. He drew that foul, and he was Suarez and all of his annoying best at that point. He grabbed his head somehow, even though he got stomped. He somehow managed to punch the guy going down, too. That's Luis Suarez. But he was effective in closing that game down, defending deep. But Cavani, to me, was the star. Godin, I think, had a good game as well throughout it, but he always does. I mean, he's just athletic in that way. So I didn't think Uruguay was that bad, is what I'm getting at, Kevin. I just think they weren't quite clicking, to use a non-pun for once. And now that they've got this result, and you saw the relief on their hands, you saw the relief on their faces as they celebrated that. And any team's going to celebrate a late winner in the World Cup that way. But, I think they won the group with that header.
Yeah, of course. They won the group with that header, and it'll be interesting to see what results they do have against Russia and against Saudi Arabia. If Russia scored 5 against Saudi Arabia, what's the ceiling for Uruguay? 10? Are we going to break the all-time scoring record of 8-0? 8-1? It might be the case, Uruguay. Let's just put it this way. If you're a Suarez or Cavani and have maybe some aspirations of winning a golden boot in this tournament, the game against Saudi Arabia where you can get a hat trick and without working too hard might be really salivating.
It could be, yeah. The one caveat I'll give to that, I mean, you never can predict it. I don't think it's possible to predict a 7, 8, 9 goal game. I mean, I watch a team week in, week out in Manchester City that can consistently put big score lines up against teams. But just when you think they're going to do that, they often don't. So I wouldn't necessarily count on that. The other factor I'm going to say real quickly here, and I don't want to belabor this because I don't know how many players follow it, but based on the religion of these guys, both Saudi Arabia and Egypt, there's a lot of people that would have been celebrating Ramadan, which ends, I believe, at midnight tonight or at sundown tonight. So that probably played a role in both Saudi Arabia's collapse at the end. If they're weak, because you're not eating or drinking during the day, that's going to affect you at the end of a game. That's going to be over by the time they play again, and they won't have that same factor. Just something to think about, too.
The thing is, it depends where you are in the world. At some places, it actually ended yesterday. So some places ended yesterday, and today is still the time where you're reacclimatizing to eating during the day. The thing is, people think they're not eating. It's not true. They're just living mostly during the nighttime. So it's just switching training time, switching things around to still maybe have some of that energy. It might be something to keep an eye on, but Eid Mubarak at some part of the world was yesterday, Thursday at midnight, and a lot of my friends that are coworkers as well, colleagues, were celebrating or are going to celebrate at 11 a.m. watching Morocco play while making sure that they're having a lot of sustenance at the same time, and I don't blame them whatsoever. But it's an interesting idea, and the timing of the World Cup, and for sure, like, they would never put the World Cup, especially in Qatar or anywhere, during Ramadan, and it's kind of fair too. Like, it would never happen during any other big religion-based, either like I'm trying to find the Christian one. What's it?
Yeah,
before Easter, when you fast for I know this.
I'm technically one, Kevin, but I don't know if
I know this. It's on it's the top of my Lent. There you go. See, Lent. I got it. I got it. Lent. All right. So you do have this. It's interesting. Yes, but
I give up cheering for Manchester United during every Lent.
Yeah, that's true. One year I decided to not to play PS4. That was the longest month of my life. Never again. Speaking of never again, is this truly the Uruguay having some push? Because let's not forget, they finished second in qualifying. Second only to Brazil. They finished in front of Argentina, which we'll see play tomorrow against Iceland. What is the ceiling for Uruguay? Is this really the team we thought they would be? Are they truly the class of this group? Or
they won.
They won, so, but they had to work really hard for that goal. And when you look at the roster on paper, with the presence of Suarez, Cavani, Di Maria, and company, not company as Vincent Company, but like with the C.
No, he's Belgian.
Company with a C, not a K. Company with a C. Yeah. You do have a feeling this team should have done more against Egypt without its only threat. Maybe Egypt is more than Mo Salah. Maybe that's what we learned today too, but they still lost.
I think Egypt showed very well, but they also demonstrated exactly why they're going to be in trouble even against Russia, I think, because the Russians showed a killer instinct in front of goal and found goals in a lot of different ways against, admittedly, a team that we're pretty convinced might be the worst team in the tournament, but they just had no bite up front, and that wasn't upon this time. There just was nothing there, right? So, look, I think that when you're talking about a World Cup, unless you're Brazil, you probably shouldn't get too bogged down in how and only look at the what. And they did get the win here, and they are still positioned now with a win over Russia to get the result. Now, as I said off the top, Russia can low block their way to a 0-0 with Uruguay and win the group now, assuming they get a result against Egypt. So that is something to think about as well. But no, I think that in the end, when you saw the high-end talent in the last 10 minutes, that you saw the quality of what this Uruguayan team can be. Another interesting thing is that they sort of, I said this in the previews, is that one thing that Uruguay did to help them turn things around in qualifying was that they sort of injected some youth into it. They started some youth that they pulled off at half and went with some older players in there, some more veteran players that have been through the battles that won Copa America, that went to semifinals in the World Cup. They started to bring those guys back in, and we saw the difference in the second half where they were the better team at times. I mean, Egypt, for as well as they played, didn't really threaten at any point, and that's a big part of the fact that Salah was gone. But I think you've got to give credit where credit's due here, and Uruguay again, it's not the how, it's the what, and the what was 3 points.
All right, let's move quickly to the rest of the games today. Morocco or Iran, obviously. Morocco the favorite in this one. Anything Iran can throw at Morocco that you would believe will not be 3 points for Morocco, or maybe the shock of not getting the World Cup in 8 years will maybe give them a bit of a hesitation and a bit of carelessness. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't. That's the only question. Well, look, I mean, this is obviously a 3-4 battle in this group, so it does intrigue me precisely for the reason you just said. How does Morocco react to the loss of the World Cup bid? Until the Asian teams, I don't mean to belabor this, I'm not trying to pick on them, but until the Asian teams show me something, I'm not going to believe them in any game. I gave the numbers yesterday. If you weren't listening yesterday, I'll really quickly repeat them. Since 1998, when the World Cup expanded to 32 teams, the Asian teams average 0.70 points per game. If you take Japan and Korea out of that, they average 0.4 points per game. Less than half a point a game that they play in the World Cup. That is the lowest of all the confederations. I mean, other than Oceania, who's not there other than once. So it's just until they start to show you something, you don't do anything. Iran has gone 0-3 in a couple of their World Cup appearances. They've last won a World Cup game back in 1998. Our American listeners don't want to remember that game. So, yeah, you got to give Morocco as the favorite here, provided they don't protest or something, which is, don't laugh. I mean, we've seen teams do protests in the World Cup level because it's the only time they can get attention. But it generally has to do with financial stuff, not their country not getting a World Cup. I think the players are probably going to be proud enough that they'll go out and they'll get the job done. The Moroccans would. But everyone, we've given enough time to this one because I think everyone wants to talk about the next one.
Portugal versus España. That's the classic match. That's the marquee matchup in this opening day here. By the time people listen to this, the game's going to be over, so let's not belabor too much. We'll review it tomorrow as well as the France and Australia game. But this Portugal versus España, what has transcended over the last 3 days, will it have an effect on España on the field? We know it did in the locker room, and we had players like Iniesta and Sergio Ramos raising up their voices and trying to get unity in the wake of what's happening in the last few days. But in your minds, what has going down with the firing? I still can't believe it. With the firing of the manager 3 days out. Yeah. What are going to be the ramifications on the pitch this time?
I mean, these things sometimes have like almost an adverse effect, right? Where they it's a rallying point so we are all us against the world stuff, where the players get together, win it for the Gipper, or that's just prove that we're beyond any manager. Like that, sometimes it will happen with that. It really depends on how divided the room is. If the room is united in either its anger or its excitement of this, then it could actually be a benefit. But if they're divided, that's where the problem lies in. This is a fascinating matchup for a lot of reasons. Obviously, the European champions in Portugal, I think I don't know how to separate Messi and Ronaldo, so don't make me get into that argument. 1A or 1B, best player in the world right now. But as I said in the preview, he has played a lot of football. He didn't look particularly good in the Champions League final. I don't know whether that was an outlier or whether that was an indication of his tiredness or distraction for this. This is going to be Ronaldo's last World Cup, likely. So he's going to be motivated to try and go out with one title, and I imagine they feel that they've never had a better chance. That said, the caution that I give anyone when they're handicapping Portugal is to not get blinded by the European Championship, which sounds stupid because they won the Euro.
Yeah, but Greece won the Euro too and did not do anything after.
Yeah, they qualified for a World Cup and went 0-3. So yeah, that's
a World Cup. Yeah.
Here, yeah, you got to all remember what they did. You look, they didn't make it out of the group last time. They have been poor in group play, other than the Euro they hosted, which was the Euro Greeks won, so 2004. Yes. They haven't really this generation hasn't really done much at tournaments until this last one, where again they really just got in a roll in the knockout stage, and they got in a roll in the knockout stage by playing a really hyper defensive style.
And by
Are
the
they
way,
going to do that today?
I don't know. This is still called right now, and from 2004 on, the Portugal Golden Generation. Not because of the trophies they won, just because in this decade they've qualified for every major tournament, which is a first for Portugal too. They used to struggle. Not saying they still don't, but they struggle to qualify, not because they're poor, just because of how the qualification process is, and it's not necessarily easy as a European team to qualify every single time for Euro and for World Cup. So, this being said, as a Golden Generation, you do have a European Championship in 2016. But this is different. This is a different type of tournament. And we mentioned this a lot. One player, your best player, can win you a lot of championship in the club game. You're better surrounded. I'm thinking at a Portugal level, at a World Cup level, is Ronaldo, not by himself, but not necessarily surrounded the way he is at Real Madrid. That's a given. Can he carry this team, not just through the group stage with ease, and not necessarily spending too much energy in the group stage, but throughout the knockout stage? That's my question. Is it feasible to carry a team at a World Cup level, even for a Messi or Ronaldo? And I'm still skeptical about the answer to
that. There's two sides to that, and I could argue that on both sides, is what I'm saying. On one hand, you're right; they're not surrounded by as much talent, and I mean that's actually one thing that really jumped out at me today. It was a stark reminder of the quality difference between, you end the season watching the very top teams play in like in the Champions League final. And then you switch to a World Cup and you realize, oh yeah, this quality is high. I mean, everything around it is more fun. Well, I mean, I love the Champions League final, but you know what I mean? Like the World Cup is worthwhile on sort of a spectacle level more than it is on a pure football level. We all know that the best football in the world is played, in El Clasicos and Champions League finals and so on and so forth. But there is, there are players on that pitch that wouldn't be anywhere near a Real Madrid lineup, right? And so that works both ways. Cristiano Ronaldo is attacking those defenders that he would never see in La Liga.
That's true. Oh man, I can't wait to see that. Well, at least
he doesn't
Spain,
have the same service.
Yeah, at least Spain's got some good defenders. So in that instance, it doesn't work. But yeah, you're right. So that's fascinating to me in a way that the World Cup, the levels and the disparity between the talent of players is bigger than you will have in the club game, which we do talk about the club game on a daily basis outside of World Cups. You're listening to what usually is called Soccer Today. But during the World Cup, we rebrand as World Cup Today. Speaking of World Cup Today, Duane.
Just real quickly, I just had a thought that I want to share before I forget it. It just occurred to me that what the World Cup kind of is, if you think about this, is kind of what the major European league would look like if it was set up like Major League Soccer. So you have to spread the talent more thinly, and you have disparity of talent from top to bottom on any given lineup, and you have disparity of talent when you're putting. This is what MLS would look like if you had the world's best players. Okay, go on.
Sure. You're like DPs. Messi, Ronaldo are your DPs. I guess it works. All right. We'll take a quick break, and we'll come back after the break with a preview of Day 3 with a big key matchup to open up Day 3.
Как в самоваре, так и страсть наша, и месяц смотрит ласково в окно. Маша чай мне наливает, а взор ее так много обещает.
World Cup Today live daily, right here, youtube.com/sportspodcast network. Thank you to the over 7,000 listeners in the last 24 hours. Thank you for subscribing, hitting the little subscribe button underneath the screen right now, or on your podcast. Any podcatchers out there, make sure you hit the subscribe button. We appreciate your likes and your shares, and especially your money at patreon.com/sportspodcast network. Without you, this show would not be possible. Without your contribution and your pledges, the production values of this show would be nil. And now they're pretty decent, and that's because of listeners like you. By the way, podcast versions available at sportspodcastingnetwork.com. We thought today's a big day with 3 games, Duane. Tomorrow's a bigger day with 4 games starting at 6 a.m. France, Australia, then followed by another game that's interesting. I'm just waiting to make sure that the scroll comes back around. So France, Australia to start the day at 6 a.m. Then 9 a.m. we have Argentina versus Iceland. Iceland back to reality. Reality check for Iceland tomorrow morning. Peru, Denmark at noon. And in the afternoon, another game, the fourth game where thank God for coffee, and I hope I don't make too much abuse of the good stuff at 6 a.m. because Croatia, Nigeria is going to be tough at 3 p.m. if I do so.
That's a hell of a lineup tomorrow. There's a lot of fun there. Obviously, you have you have Messi playing. You have France, one of the preseason favorites. The Peru team I'm really interested in. I have a lot of Peruvian friends too, so that'll be fun. It's going to be the middle weekend. The first weekend of a World Cup is always the best weekend because you get 4 games a day and it's new and it's fresh and you have energy and it's exciting and it's I mean, like I said, I joked off the top about the Russia game yesterday. It was kind of a bit of a dud to start a tournament, but today when Cavani hit that post, I was like, okay, game on. It's a World Cup now, and we got more of this today.
Yeah, exactly. And tomorrow, so France, Australia, obviously. France is going to want to showcase their talent, and it's about perception, too, this World Cup, right? Sometimes a team is beaten even before taking the field, especially if you're France. If you show your power, if you flex your muscle a little bit, if you put 2 goals behind the white line by Griezmann and maybe a little good showcase by Pogba, you put doubts aside, and France looks like a giant killer out there. And this could help them beat teams before they even take the field. So I do feel France would want to show their power after the lackluster friendly last weekend against the United States, against a very young United States team. They did not qualify for the World Cup. France barely got out of this game with a 1-1 draw. So you're looking at a France team that will want to showcase their talent against Australia at 6 a.m. Eastern Time tomorrow.
Don't read too much into the last game before a World Cup friendlies, especially when you're playing a country that has a bunch of young guns that are eager to rise up and prove themselves and aren't going to a World Cup and have nothing to lose, right? I mean, the French, they're looking to work on things and not get hurt. So I wouldn't read too much into that. I feel putting it out one more time, until an Asian team proves something to me, then I'm going to continue to doubt their ability to compete at all in this World Cup. And Australia, need I remind people, finished equal on points with Saudi Arabia in qualifying. So that's to see it. This is the weakest Asian contingent ever.
Yeah.
Like in the 32 in terms of their overall standing, because in the past you've been able to look at Japan or Korea and say, you know what, they're pretty good, the rest are weak, but those 2 teams are weak right now too. So anyway, France is, as I said, the pre-tournament one. I think it is actually consensus top 3 preseason picks. I've heard a lot of people say, "Oh, I'm going to go outside the box and pick France," and I've heard like so many people say they're going outside the box to pick France. I don't think anyone's going outside the box anymore.
Yeah, you're in the box if you pick France. You're like mayor of the box if you pick France.
Yeah, you're just not picking Germany or Brazil, so you're being a little different. Like you're
to be fair,
you're the lid of the box, not in the box, maybe.
To be fair, of all the predictions I've seen out there, I've seen France as being picked for the World Cup champions way more time than Germany or Brazil. Maybe it's just because of what we call the fatigue of seeing always Brazil or Germany as a favorite. But when you look at it, yes, Germany won in 2014. Brazil hasn't won since 2002. It's now 16 years without a World Cup for Brazil, and for Brazil, that's a lot. So as much as Brazil is a favorite, there's still a lot of unknowns for me in Brazil, and this is a European-based World Cup. Brazil famously usually doesn't win those.
Yeah. Then again, famously, World Cups outside of Brazil outside of Europe weren't won by European teams until last time. So
until 7-1, and then 1-0 with Argentina and Messi. True.
Yeah, look, I mean, Germany should be your favorite. I don't know how we're talking about this right now, but Germany should be the favorite based on the fact that they're defending champions, but they didn't win Euro, so they're not unbeatable. But France, to get back to them, though, what's France's biggest sort of narrative? They're similar to Italy this way. Italy's, of course, not here, so we don't have to worry about them this time, but both of those countries in a World Cup, you go, Let's just see how they do in that first game, because if they flop in that first game, this could start to spiral, and it has to do with the amount of pressure and the amount of stuff that goes around behind the scenes and the amount of drama and personalities that are involved with those countries. And if Australia can nick something tomorrow, even a draw, you could potentially see France start to spiral, because their history suggests that they might. But if they can get down and lay down a marker and say, okay, we're France and we're one of the favorites, then yeah, it's cruise time for them in this group, and it's an important game for them.
So if I'm France, okay, example, I'm the dynamic duo of France, okay? I'm the two best friends, Pogba and Griezmann, and we're together, we're in the room, and, we're looking at the news feed, we're looking on our Twitter feed, and we're looking at everything. By the way, Griezmann mentioned that he will be back with Atletico Madrid, so congratulations to Antoine Griezmann on a new contract with Atletico Madrid. That's a great news for all the Atleti fans out there. But for Griezmann and Pogba, Duane, imagine this. You usually have a confidence level, because you don't know which one of your teammates is going to create the drama, which one of your teammates is going to be angry and not show up, and you're wondering when this thing will hit the fan. And then you're like, oh wait, Spain is the new us. Spain is the new France. We might be okay. We've been outshone. Spain decided to say, hold my beer, France, and let me show you how drama is truly done. So for this reason, I'm thinking France well, we might be okay. Let's just play, and we'll see how it happens.
Yeah, and quickly on Griezmann and Atleti, I know a lot of Atleti fans still mourn the loss of the Calderon, but if the Calderon was basically a hunk of concrete, your new modern stadium is why you're able to sign Antoine Griezmann to a longer contract, because now you can make money and sort of really challenge those big two in front of you. But at any rate,
now you can keep them. You don't have to sell them. So, yeah, can you imagine where Atleti would be today if they did not have to sell the Torres, the Diego Costa at their prime? It would be a totally different club. But why are we talking about clubs? It's about tomorrow. Second
instincts die hard, Kevin.
Soccer Today, live daily outside of the World Cup. World Cup Today, live daily during the World Cup. Argentina.
All right, move on.
Argentina versus Iceland, 9 a.m. This game for me is going to be Iceland. Yay, we're coming. We're the world. The world is welcoming us. We're the world's team.
Who's that little guy?
And then, bang. The Messi wall will hit you hard. 2 free kick goals. I feel Messi's going to have a party. And Iceland is going to go back to reality.
I move around the city on foot a lot, either running or walking, and everywhere I see these pictures. I see this little Argentine man everywhere in the city of Toronto. He is everywhere in every city, everywhere in the world, right? This is Messi, and it's his debut, and that's got to excite everyone. It's going to be a nice little breakfast buffet tomorrow. And can you get a better matchup? I mean, honestly. For a lot of people, the 9 a.m. Saturday matchup, for a lot of casual people, will be the first World Cup match they watch. Because no one's getting up at 6 in the morning unless you're a diehard or French.
French, yeah.
Imagine
if you're a diehard French fan, then you're up at I might not sleep tonight.
Exactly. And the other games are weekday or during the work days. So the first game a lot of people in this World Cup are going to watch is Lionel Messi, Argentina, and the Cinderella story of all time. So this is the true opener of this World Cup. I have been on record many times now of saying that I think Iceland's a wonderful story, but I don't think they're going to do much in this World Cup. And
Duane, Cinderella is a nice story, but she loses a shoe anyways, right? She loses a shoe at one point in the story, and she has to say goodbye to her nice little evening. Well, tomorrow 9 a.m. the shoe drops for Iceland.
Yes, it's one thing to beat England in a knockout round of a major tournament, because that just happens. This is quite the other challenge they have, but it's great. Honestly, though, I remember distinctly in 2005. Sitting around my computer trying to desperately get a stream of a Canada-Iceland friendly so that I could watch it, and joking on the Voyageurs, which is the Canadian National Team Supporters Board, about how hard it was to get a stream. This is early streaming days. So at any rate, I remember watching this, and at that point in time, Iceland and Canada were almost identical in the rankings. they're not identical in the rankings anymore. So good for them. My God, could you put yourself in those shoes? They're going to wake up tomorrow morning in Iceland and go, we're playing Messi today in the World Cup. And 12 years ago, we were playing friendlies against Canada. 13 years ago. That's a remarkable rise, and it's got to be applauded. But it might, midnight might come fast.
Midnight might come fast for Cinderella, a.k.a. Iceland. Then Peru, after 32 years of wait, something like that.
82. Yep.
All right, it's me. I didn't see the 3 correctly. I thought it was a 3, but it's an 8. Peru versus Denmark. This might be interesting, Duane, because Peru, South American. It's so difficult to qualify out of South America, out of the CONMEBOL, that Denmark is a minnow, and if like we talk about Messi and Portugal being Argentina, and talking about the Ronaldo with Portugal being one-man team, Denmark is truly a one-man team. They're there for one reason and one reason only, and that's because of the 2 feet of Christian Eriksen. So if it's not for Christian Eriksen, Denmark will not be in the World Cup. And if you put 4 or 5 guys around Christian Eriksen, whatever you need to, just make sure Eriksen cannot control the ball for more than a second, you can beat Denmark.
Precisely. Oh yeah, no, I like this Peruvian team. They're a team. They've got a lot of unity in there. There's a lot of excitement around there. As I've said before, if you look at the history of South American teams in the World Cup, often those, like that number 5 team that comes in, will often do much better than you'd expect. Paraguay, I remember a couple World Cups ago, made it to a knockout round. There's so much talent in South America that anyone that gets out of that qualifying cannot be ignored. Now, in defense, Peru did benefit from some shenanigans, which took some points away there, which allowed them to qualify. But nonetheless, they are here. They are excited. I have a lot of Peruvian friends. I have a Danish friend too, Henrik. How you doing? If you're listening, I know Henrik's a regular listener. So so enjoy your day today, and I'm gonna sit back and I'm gonna very much have fun watching that game at noon. It is a much better game than I think people are going to look. It's not the game anyone's going to look at tomorrow and go, oh, that's the one to watch. But I think it should be a lot of fun. There's a lot of intrigue. I don't really know who's going to win it. So that's an interesting one there.
And the last game on the docket for Saturday, June 16th, 3 p.m. Eastern Time, we do have Croatia, Nigeria. Maybe some injury woes for Croatia, but we'll see. It's hard to take anyone's words seriously right now because they said Mo was okay, and Mo clearly is not okay. So who's right, who's wrong, who knows? Who cares? But is Croatia 100% versus Nigeria? Is Nigeria, the Super Eagles, better than we believe? Can they give a go to Croatia? But the midfield of Croatia might be one of the best in this tournament. The question is it enough to get goals? They don't necessarily have the striker to finish the great service of the midfield, but can Croatia put a clinic on Nigeria? That's the question tomorrow afternoon.
Yeah, another very intriguing matchup. We haven't seen Africa in this yet, so to get a look at what the quality of the African teams is going to be a nice measure there for sure. It's always, obviously Africa isn't playing Europe, you know what I mean, but kind of look at what they did in qualifying and get a better idea when they come in to sort of gauge the other African teams. So I'll be interested there. Nigeria does have a great history in a World Cup of being a fairly strong team, so I wouldn't count them out. But Croatia is my dark horse pick, an immensely talented team that maybe has underachieved a little bit. By not making the last World Cup, they certainly have underachieved, but they're back now. It's going to be, the most important thing, though, Kevin, it is going to be the sexiest matchup of the World Cup in terms of the jerseys. The 2 best jerseys that we're going to see in this World Cup will be on display.
I don't like Croatia's jersey this year. The squares are too big. It takes away from the checkboard pattern. It doesn't feel checkboard anymore. You need to make the squares a bit smaller, Puma, or is it Adidas or Nike? I don't know. Whoever their sponsor is. But Nigeria, though, that kid is lit. Wow, I speak like a kid now. That's what happens when you have the World Cup and you feel like a kid. You speak like a kid. That kid is lit.
So it's not Da Bomb?
It's not 92, Duane. Like, it's not like extreme is not cool anymore. And cool is not cool anymore. If it was 1992, then Denmark would be rocking the 1992 European Championship. See, full circle. That's what I do. Anyway, on that note, Go ahead.
I said, on that note, I'm going to be quiet then, Kevin, and maybe you can say goodbye.
You can follow Duane on Twitter at 24th Minute and myself at Kev Laramee. Thank you very much to all the brand new listeners. Over 7.5 thousand listeners in the last 24 hours. That number just continues to rise. So we thank you very much for discovering us on YouTube, on Facebook, and podcasts available anywhere you get your podcasts. Make sure you subscribe or like our Facebook page, and you subscribe on a podcast feed. That really does help us a lot. Make sure you help our sponsors as well. We thank you, everyone, for your time. If you would like to find ad-free versions of the show, they'll be back on patreon.com/sportspodcast network later today. A contribution of $5 a month or over will give you access to ad-free versions of our show. And as always, until tomorrow, have a great World Cup.